The fillet tool is one of the easiest tools to use in SOLIDWORKS. Since it's an applied feature, you don't even need a sketch to use it. Simply select an edge on your model, choose the settings you want in the Property Manager, for example, a constant radius fillet with a 1/2-inch radius, and click the check to create the fillet. While you've likely used the fillet tool extensively in lots of different ways, you might not know that the fillet tool is really just a shortcut tool for either adding or removing material to or from the model. For example, you can think of it like a swept cut, with the profile being an arc and the path being the edge you select. This would be a case where the fillet removes material, but in certain scenarios, it can add material as well. Now, more often than not, the standard fillet tool works really well, and you can use it to save you lots of time when creating fillets. However, if you run into a situation, perhaps creating a variable radius surface that the fillet tool can't handle, there are a couple of other techniques you can use to get the job done, namely, using a combination of surfacing tools. Before I get started, I'd like to mention that this method is fairly complex and time-consuming, but if you find yourself in a situation where you can't quite get the geometry you're looking for using the fillet tool, this method is worth a shot. Here, I have a simple extruded block, a solid body. The first thing I'm going to do here is delete some faces to turn this into a surface model. I'll select these 3 faces while holding the Control key and right-click, and select Delete from the Face section. When the Delete Face Property Manager appears, I'll select the Delete option. I don't want to patch or fill them. When I click the green check, the faces are deleted, and the solid body model is now a surface model. Next, we'll need to create the sketches for the fillet. We'll need a path and some guide curves. Let's begin with the guide curves. I'll start a new sketch on this top face here, and I'll create a spline. In this case, a 3-point spline. In order to control the shape of the spline, I'll add some construction geometry and dimensions. I'll use a construction line to control the end-to-end length, and another construction line from the midpoint of this line with the relation to position the center point of the spline. Now I can add some dimensions to control the distances. Remember, with splines, you can also dimension and adjust the drag handles. I want the drag handles on the ends to be collinear with the construction line. With the relations added, I can add dimensions to control the length of the drag handles. Once you have the spline looking the way you want, exit the sketch. Next, I'll create a reference plane that I can use to sketch the profile for the sweep. I'll choose these 2 edges and create the plane. I'll create a new sketch on this plane and sketch a simple circle. Right now, I'll just sketch it off to the side. Now, let's add some relations. The first relation I want to add is a pierce relation through the center of the circle and this edge here, which will be the sweep path. We want this circle to be able to change diameter to follow this guide curve. So I'll add a sketch point and make it coincident with the circle. And then I'll select that point and the spline and create a second pierce relation. This fully defines the sketch and gives us everything we need to create the sweep. I'll go to Insert, Surface, Sweep. The profile is the circle, and the path is this straight line edge here. With no guide curves, you can see the preview is just a cylinder, but we want to use the spline as a guide curve. When I select it, you can see the preview changes and looks more like what we're looking for. I'll click the green check to complete the sweep. Now I can do a trim. This will be a mutual trim using all of the surfaces. And I want to keep the top and side faces. I'll click the check to complete the trim, and I can now hide the swept surface. You can see the gap in the surfaces where the fillet will be created. Now at this point, we're almost done. We can use a boundary surface to create the geometry we need, but before we can fill this in, we're going to need 2 more sketches. I'll start another sketch on the reference plane we created and create a 3-point arc sketch. I'll choose the 2 endpoints and drag out the arc. To fully define the sketch, we can add a horizontal relation between the center point and this endpoint here. Now I can repeat the process on the other side. I'll create a plane, start a sketch on that plane, create the 3-point arc, add the horizontal relation, and exit the sketch. To finish the fillet, I'll go to Insert, Surface, Boundary Surface. For Direction 1, I'll choose the 2 spline-shaped curves that we got when we created the surface trim. For Direction 2, I'll select the 2 3-point arcs. Next, we need to specify the tangency type for the Direction 1 curves. I want to select Tangent to face from the drop-down. For the tangent influence, I want this to be 100%. I'll make sure this is the same for both curves. Finally, I'll click the green check, and the fillet is complete. All that's left is to rebuild the model and turn it into a solid again. I can do this using planar surfaces. I'll go to Insert, Surface, Planar, and select Edges to create the surfaces. 3 planar surfaces should do the trick. Remember, you can always use the Enter key on the keyboard to relaunch the last feature you used. Finally, I can use the Surface Knit tool select the entire model, and make sure the Merge Entities and Try to Form Solid checkboxes are enabled. When I click the green check, the model is complete.